Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of Need to Nerd. I'm your host, Spencer, and I'm joined by three other nerds: Michael,
Hey, how's it going?
Mason,
Hey, how you doing?
and West.
Hey, what's up?
How's it going, guys?
Good.
That's good to
Doing
hear.
well.
I can hear myself in somebody's microphone. It's pretty awkward.
Oh dear.
Huh.
Huh.
Not sure.
I definitely don't have your sound outside of my head.
If I were to guess, it'd probably be Spencer has the stream sound on, but on YouTube.
I
But
don't have
okay.
that. But this is a great start to any podcast, especially when you're live on YouTube. So, yeah, guys, I'm excited to do this. This is something I've been wanting to do for quite a while, and yeah, let's get right into this. So, Need to Nerd is going to be just a podcast about nerd culture. We're just going to talk about literally whatever we want. In that vein, we get to talk about Game of Thrones, My Hero Academia, Star Wars, Marvel, filmmaking, films in general, comic books, like whatever we want to talk about. This is kind of an outlet for us to do that, and it's kind of exciting. Having a creative outlet is good. I don't know where this is going to go from there, but yeah, I for one am excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
It's going to be a good adventure.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, let's talk about who we are. Just to kind of introduce ourselves. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. If you're watching live, if you're watching on the VOD later, we really appreciate it. So, with that being said, I'll go first. My name is Spencer. I'm a competitive Magic the Gathering player. Played on the Magic the Gathering Pro Tour. I'm a huge Star Wars enthusiast. I have a 2-year-old, and I'm really into podcasting. Like, it's kind of my hobby at this point. So, that's kind of me. I think that if I were to describe my favorite things, Magic the Gathering, Star Wars, podcasting, and sports would probably be the top. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm about. What about you, Mason?
So I'm Mason. I should say my whole name. I guess I'm Mason Clark is the way to do that. I like competitive Magic, like serialized dramas, anime. I like watching Smash Brothers and League of Legends competitively when it comes to that kind of stuff. I also do content creation when it comes to Magic the Gathering. I do a podcast called Even Odds, and then I help with another podcast called Proven Combatants, and I'm single, ready to mingle. That's how I describe myself, and I would use finger guns to describe that.
You would use finger guns to describe your single ready to mingleness?
Yes, like this.
Okay, cool.
Pew pew.
Is there any correlation?
I
I
think that is causation, not correlation.
I recently
you're right.
picked up with the finger guns, so it can't be the finger guns. This is the first time I'm trying it right now. New show, new me. That's what I would say.
New year, new shoe, new finger guns?
Exactly. Well, I figured the finger guns have got to come back eventually, so I keep pulling them out. I'll get right on one of the tries, and if I miss,
It's 2023.
Yeah,
2023.
Are finger guns politically appropriate at this point in life?
That's a good question. I would argue that maybe relating it to that isn't politically appropriate, but
Michael, what about you?
Well, yeah, I'm Michael Merrill, and I'm a filmmaker from here in Utah. Born in Logan, and then I moved down here when I was like 12, and shortly thereafter met Spencer. I am a writer, director, producer, mostly working in like genre films, short films. I really love working in sci-fi and horror, especially. Those are my favorite playgrounds for sure. I just recently finished one of the biggest short films I've worked on to date, but I put out new shorts like every couple of months. So,
How many
So,
movies
that's
do you
me.
think you've watched in your life?
um, I honestly couldn't count.
Well, yeah.
I mean, just behind me, this is about 1,000, I think, and then I have like a DVD case of another 500 or 600, and then I watch constant movie streaming. My dad, like just growing up, was constantly watching movies, and so from a very, very young age, I think I was was probably like 5 or 6 when I first watched Predator and Alien, and alongside things like Dark Crystal and The Labyrinth. So there were like no real limitations on what movies I could watch. And my dad would always tell my mom, if he's scared, he can close his eyes. And I oftentimes did.
I wonder if I've watched 1,600 films in my life. I'm sure I have.
Yeah,
Definitely.
if I had to like just throw out a really random number, I would probably say like 5 or 6,000.
Yeah, don't think I've watched that many.
I mean, I have a really good catalog in my head for like directors and actors and stuff like that, but honestly, like I probably only really remember like 500 or 600 of them that I can like call up and actually think and talk about. And even then, it's probably like a stretch on some of them because it's been years.
But what's your go-to one?
Ooh. It really depends on the mood. Like really depends on the mood.
You have to show
right now. So I have a couple projects in development that are diving a little deeper into like the survival thriller. And so I've been watching a lot of stuff like The Ritual that's on Netflix. Bird Box, as controversial as it is, like a lot of survival thrillers, and then just like psychological horrors as well. I rewatched Hereditary for the first time. Have any of you seen that?
It's actually like on my thing to watch like in the next 2 weeks. I've heard it's very good.
I mean, if you really want to like have fun, I'd say like put on a really good set of headphones, turn off all the lights, and get as big a screen as possible. It's a really intense movie, and there are parts that are kind of hard to sit through just because they're so just tense and uncomfortable. And Toni Collette is amazing. The fact that she didn't get nominated for a Golden Globe is kind of atrocious. I mean, the Golden Globes are like kind of shams anyway. It's like have a nice lunch with somebody and here's your award. But hopefully she gets nominated for like an Oscar or something.
So when Bird Box wins all them next year, and this podcast is a year old, how will you feel then looking now into the future?
Oh,
I thought the Golden Globes for the good one.
No, not really. I mean, from most of what you hear, it's like I think like Idris Elba even one year actually said like they invited me to lunch and my agent said I had to go, so I did, and then they gave me this award. Like people have joked about the fact that like because it's run by the Hollywood Foreign Press, and they're very much about like who's the popular celebrity, who's big right now, but at the same time they're not entirely baseless, and so they do kind of affect who gets nominated for Oscars a lot of times. Like if people after the Golden Globes kind of forget about a certain actor, actress, or a film because they're just talking about the same like 3 that were big in the Golden Globes, then it can definitely shut out some people. That's happened a few times.
For real. Twitch chat's asking if we've seen a Bandersnatch. I have.
Yes.
I have not done it yet.
Okay.
I also
It's a
haven't watched
solid
any
watch.
Black Mirror for what it's worth.
That's not Twitch chat for what
You're
it's
missing
worth.
out.
Yeah.
That's YouTube chat.
Oh, Jose and Bethany. Hey.
Yeah.
How's it going?
We might have to do an episode on Bandersnatch. We might have to make these two watch/experience it.
Yeah,
I don't even know what that is.
It's a pretty trippy little film. I don't. It's one of those where it's like it's best just to go into it and not really know too much about it. So I think that's definitely a good idea. Doing like some horror watch parties might be really fun, especially like Hereditary, where it's just.
Well, could you imagine the debates if you watched Bandersnatch as a group of people?
It'd be very hard, yeah. So if you don't know, specifically for Spencer, Bandersnatch, and I'll say as little as possible, is a choose your own adventure movie. So it's like a choose your own adventure game, except the movie, like you choose things and it's on Netflix. So like the first example is like, do you want Rice Krispies for breakfast or do you want like Frosted Flakes?
I see.
And that like completely changes the movie from that point.
All right.
Yeah, and most of the endings are pretty decent. I haven't hit it, but I've heard there's one that's like really lackluster. But other than that, they're all at least somewhat satisfying. And it really does depend on like they play with that like how quick are you willing, like at times they give you the option to like, obviously because it's Black Mirror, to kill off characters and like you can put that off for a while, but if you put it off too long, then it forces you to do certain things. Like it's a really interesting experiment. And while I'm sure a lot of people talk about like what does your Bandersnatch ending mean for you, I think that really it's kind of more like what Netflix can do with shows like this and that kind of information.
Oh, is it a Netflix show?
Yes.
Yeah, it's on
dude,
Netflix.
We should. Wes, you haven't seen it?
I have not.
All right, we should stream it. We'll watch it together at my house and stream it.
That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll figure that out. We'll put that here on YouTube. So, with that being
it's
said,
definitely fun.
With that being said, West, who the hell are you?
Hi, I'm Wes Singleton. Primarily I'm a nerd, but I'm also an educator, camp counselor, knowledge seeker. I've tried my hand at being a student, but it's actually not my favorite way to learn things in life. So I haven't been too successful at it. My nerd interests are Pokemon, mostly the video games, more than anything else. I've played very little TCG in my life. Magic is, like many people in this podcast, an incredibly core part of my life. And I play a lot of D&D, and beyond that, I have my fingers in just about everywhere of fandom. And something that's going to be interesting is I'm going to learn a lot from Michael, because film might be my weakest knowledge area in nerd land. I'm a big reader, so I know a lot of science fiction novels, but I don't know that much.
Yeah, Michael's got the movies behind him. I got the the Harry Potter, Aragon, Star Wars behind me, and Mason has his mom's book behind him. So
I have a bare wall. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
And also like the sea
high production value, guys.
You know what's funny about Pokemon is I consider myself like a Pokemon lover. Like I love Pokemon, but I've never wanted to get into the competitive Pokemon scene. Like I just really want to enjoy the games.
Yeah, that for sure. The games are definitely an experience. However, I have tried my hand at the Pokemon competitive scene, and one of the reasons that I don't think it has staying power is that it's so unloved by the creators, and then it's also totally divided. There are two halves to the Pokemon competitive scene.
Well, it's funny because like I really love the TCG.
Yeah,
it's like my second favorite TCG, and you know when I played in 3 Pokemon tournaments now, and they're really fun. Like but I've never even I think the amount of time it takes to like EV train and like stuff like that, like that is like a kind of grinding. Having to grind before your tournament is like really weird to me. Like not that you don't have to do that in Magic a little bit, but like the way you have to do it in Pokemon is so specific.
Yeah, the hardest part for me about becoming like one of the things I found with competitive Pokemon is that, well, you can either do it on simulators. There have been pretty reliable Pokemon battling simulators for years now. But that community that does simulator play plays single battle first and foremost. And competitive Pokemon has been double battles for the last 5 years. So if you do want to hang out with the people who are playing in live competitive Pokemon events, you have to play doubles first. And then I found that you spend so much time grinding your Pokemon, you don't get as much time practicing the battling as you ought to.
But that's the thing with Magic, right? Is like when you just pick your deck, you narrow your deck down, and then you go take the deck, and you've played so much with that deck that you know the deck. In Pokemon, that's not the case. You actually are just grinding your Pokemon, EVs until you get the right one, breeding, and like it's just so different. Like breeding, for example, is like completely separate from like actual gameplay.
Yeah. However, the breeding is its own reward after a right. Anyone who's ever like played RuneScape or anything with a mindless grind mode knows what it's nice to have a mindless grind next to just watching television. And so that's been a big part of my life since I was a freshman in high school. Actually, some of my best friends that I have, one of the first things we did with each other as freshmen in high school was we didn't do full grinding that can be done in 4th gen Pokemon, but we like half grinded. Like we did good natures and good move sets and like proper breeding.
Sure.
On our Pokemon, we never got IVs good, and we EV trained. But we would do that like just between classes, and like that was how we battled. And that was a really good time. That was the best time competitive Pokemon has ever been for me. Was when it was just an intimate thing with my friends.
It's really like when I was in elementary school, like when Red and Blue came out. One summer, my best friend and I, Michael Raleigh, we had cloned all 150 Pokemon into our boxes because he had Red and I had Blue, and we got everything. We got every Pokemon to level 100, and we like showed up to school and like first day of school, challenged people to battles, and just destroyed everyone. So like I remember the mindless grind, but I like mindless grinding through like that. I don't know, like completing the Pokedex.
Yeah, no, that's like legitimate, and I think that one of the staying powers of Pokemon is that it's never been one type of game to anyone.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like Magic is as well, and any good game with a big community, I think, has this facet. It can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Same with movies too.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think that like people enjoy movies for like very different reasons. Like
Absolutely.
it's funny like the number of people that like crap on popcorn flicks. It's like I love popcorn flicks. Like who doesn't love a good popcorn flick?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that kind of gets forgotten a lot of the time, especially like I know right now it's kind of like it hurts to even bring up Star Wars just
Dude,
as a topic of conversation.
Well, we have to discuss it.
We'll get into it during this next segment. Let's talk about the biggest things that you nerd over the most, and we'll start with you, West.
Sure. For me, the core three things that I nerd over in my life are D&D, Magic, and Pokemon. Magic is like it's a form of school almost. Like where I'm at, I've gotten an education in Magic. I've studied. I've read articles. I've read papers. I've done tests. I've done competitive zero-sum tests too. And then like I don't know like. But it has taught me like minor things that you grow from that are totally unrelated to like the core strategy of the game. Like learning to not tilt has been huge for me in life. Learning to be okay with any outcome as long as your choices are correct has been really big. And like, you know, it's been a strong mentorship as well. In a variety of places. And Spencer's like beaming inside right now because he knows that he's mentioned many of those topics on his podcast.
I think that if there's a podcast that or like if there's a Magic creator that preaches that Magic is an analog for life and does it probably more than anyone else, it's probably me.
Marshall Sutcliffe has said those exact words before.
Sure. I say it every week.
Yeah.
I think that like I mean Magic is an easy one to get caught into. Like
For sure.
I mean, all four of us have been suckered in at one point in our lives. So like, and it's funny. You talk to like, it's so funny like the number of people that like you say that you play Magic to, and they're like, I play Magic, and then like they'll get out this deck with like a bunch of Mirrodin cards. They're like, let's play.
I don't know. I love that aspect of the game.
It's so cool.
Actually. It's why when I see like I work with kids, right? My primary job that I've had for the last 5 years of my life is I work in an after-school program. And when I just like walk around a corner and some kids are like playing Magic in the library, but they're doing it totally wrong, I just walk away. I don't engage, and I'm really happy it's happening. But I know that their Magic is not the same as my Magic, and no one is happier by sharing that at that moment, which is an interesting. Like I'll be excited for them, but like where Magic is for me is just in such a completely different place that it takes a certain mindset for me to even want to like engage.
So about kind of going, we've already talked about Magic, we already talked about Pokemon a little bit, but kind of going into D&D.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I play D&D for a little while. Mostly, I played with my friends who were they played Living Greyhawk, which is like a version when you have to be good. I think it was V3.5.
Okay.
But recently I played a couple games of Gloomhaven. And
that's a sweet role-playing game.
That's like really sweet for somebody like me who's like legitimately thought about buying it to like see if my wife will play with me, get some friends over, just like do a campaign. You don't have to have like a strong DM. Have you enjoyed that or?
I actually haven't played it. I've only seen people play it and I've like heard reviews. I'm excited to get down to it. And actually, that's one of the things is that I don't like mention role-playing games in general. I mentioned specifically D&D because where D&D has taken a role in my life as like I buy as many books as I can and then I like live in them. And like I love having just so much knowledge of one game that oftentimes I'm uncomfortable playing other role-playing games. I like having my core body of knowledge that comes, and that's part of the reason I've stuck to like huge pillars all my life. Like, all of my Pokemon knowledge has been additive. All of my D&D knowledge is additive. And I'm probably not as much of a risk taker in trying new games because of it.
Cool.
It's like math.
All right, before we move on to Mason, I just want to give a special shout out to Crystal Elliott, who did our overlay. You should definitely check out her Facebook page. We'll leave a link to it in the not in the comments. I mean, I can do that too, but I'll leave it in the show notes and on the YouTube video. But just want to give her a special shout out. With that being said, Crystal, Mason, so you can go next. Why don't you talk about?
I do know Crystal.
I just remember that I forgot to plug her at the beginning of the show. So
you're good.
Mason, why don't you talk about like the things that you nerd out about?
Sure. So much like Spencer and West, I play Magic the Gathering and I play competitively. And I make content for it
competitively.
Weekly. Yeah.
We're gonna get to the competitive task these days.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I mean, I do. I don't know. Like,
that was a joke, Mason. I was making fun of you. I was making fun of you.
Oh, okay, sure. I'm sorry. I thought you meant like Arena isn't competitive or whatever, and that's like what I've been playing a lot of or something.
No,
and I was like, oh, okay.
I was just saying you suck at Magic. That's all.
Oh, okay. That didn't even cross my mind because it's just not true. That's because even on my radar, it's like a joke that could be made. No, but like, so like, I don't want to tread ground there because I think it's a lot of the same stuff, and I don't think I have anything new to add there. But for other things that like I'm passionate about is I really like watching something. And it can be anything. It can be like a movie. It could be a TV show. It could be, I guess an anime is like a Japanese TV show, right? And then like kind of getting big into it and learning about it, and then not having. I know it's weird because like the podcast will encourage me to talk about it, but it's like something where I've watched a lot of things, and I've done a lot of research and read things, and reviews, and what people think, and then I just move on to the next thing. So
was it you or somebody else who got on my YouTube and was like, "What is with all these Power Ranger videos?"
I don't think it might have been me. I don't know. I think I remember that with Dragon Ball before I knew Dragon Ball.
Like that I'm like the same way. It's really funny where I'll just go like binge watch YouTube. Like I know so much about so many seasons of Power Rangers that I never watched. I also know like the order of Power Rangers doesn't follow the order of the Sentai show. Like they're not the same. They like pick and choose which ones they want to do next in English. Like I know so much about Power Rangers and I don't even watch it. So I'm the same way.
Yeah, it's weird because I'll only look into things that I've watched. Like, does that make sense? So like, if I had never watched Power Rangers, I wouldn't do that. But like, if I watched the show like I recently did on Netflix, right, which is a great show and I highly suggest. I like went and looked up the book. I went and looked up season 2. I went and looked up the actors. I went and looked up reviews. I went and looked up what critics said. And I was like, all right, I really like the show for these things. Why did they like it? Why did they dislike it? And so I'll go like really deep into things I'm in, and then I'll like just kind of move on to the next thing. And not like even I forget about it, but it's just like, what's the next thing I can kind of like jump head first into? And so, yeah, there's that. And then I would say the last thing is just like, so I've played a bunch of games, but I've never really gone too deep on too many of them. So like I've played like Pokemon Online Battle Simulator and stuff like that, but I like just strategy things in general. I would say like that's like the big thing to me. So like I've played what was talked about earlier in the podcast, where like you play online, so like strategy character, the Pokemon are like spec the way you want to, so you don't have to do the grinding part. Like I've done a lot of little things like that, and I like jumping into something new. And I guess like this is similar for all of them, but like I like jumping in and learning about them, even if I don't stick with it.
Well, that's the great mystery of it all, is that in strategy games in general, they're all unique in their ways, but the skills we're learning are to take apart any of them. And to figure out what makes them tick. And that's one of the exciting parts is like a game that has a lot of depth that you know really well is interesting, but getting your hand on a game where you have no idea how much depth this is and you don't know what's there is also really exciting. And I think both parts of this are like related in a lot of ways.
I agree with that 100%. That was a good way to say it. So I would say that's kind of it for me. But what about you, West? Now you did West.
It's me.
That's us.
It's my turn.
Hey, boo boo.
Yeah, so I'm really similar to. It's actually I didn't realize that I would enjoy this part of the episode so much. Like it's really interesting to see the type of like we're all nerds, right? We all nerd out about stuff, and
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see like the type of things that you nerd out about. And one of the things that I'm trying to do with the Heezy Game Media Discord is like if you nerd out about it and you think other people in our community will nerd out about it, like go join the Discord and go nerd out about it and like have those conversations. Because like I want a friendly place that people can do that because the internet's so toxic, right?
Yeah. Setting up friendly communities is definitely a worthwhile goal out here.
Yeah, and so for me, there's a few things that like I really nerd out about. I watch so much Star Wars YouTube. Like, I read Star Wars books. Like if I were to go to my Audible account, I straight up think that there's like 30 Star Wars books in there.
That's where I should be consuming my like not found on a bookstore shelves like
Oh yeah,
random arcane info.
I'll
Is
probably try and get us an Audible sponsorship. To be honest.
that awesome.
No, I think that like legitimately, like yeah, so I'm really into specifically, I'm really into like I don't know if I would call it teen fantasy books, but
YF.
Young adults.
young adult.
YA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
YA, that's the one.
But I don't know that all of them are young adult. But either way, I think that I'm into that specifically. Like all my favorite books from the last year or a couple years are.
You mean your all-time right behind you?
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. I think that Harry Potter is like something special.
I was noticing Aragon as well on your shelf.
I actually think
Behind you.
Aragon is like the best Star Wars books of all time. To be clear, we'll do a whole podcast on that. I promise.
On how Aragon is Star Wars?
Oh, it straight up is just literally Star Wars.
I'm in for this. That sounds awesome.
It's just straight up Star Wars. But that's something that I nerd out about pretty hard. Like I think that I was more excited, like waking up on December 31st to get the new book on Audible for the Aragon series was like Christmas for me. I waited for it for months. I was super excited. Going back to Algasia and just like reliving those moments and listening to the person that reads the audiobooks was super amazing for me.
I do love narration. I think that's always the part that strikes me in really good audiobooks.
Yeah, I think that I've fallen in love with like a couple of really good narrators. I think Mark Thompson, who does most of the Star Wars books, is really good. I think that Jim Dale obviously has won literally every possible award you can win for doing stuff like that. So I'm really into that. And then, sorry, now a Star Wars book is playing. I think Star Wars is like up there for me. It is legitimately in my top favorite things of all time. And kind of like Michael said, it makes me kind of sad to see the way people react to it. I watched Last Jedi again the other night, and I like got so excited for those beautiful scenes those masterpieces of scenes, and it sucks that that 4chan can have such an effect on the world, but
Negative words have such an effect on anything ever.
yeah,
It's really impressive.
but as much as I don't like Ryan Johnson, that movie is like this beautiful masterpiece as far as visually, and that's something that's really cool. And then I nerd out about Magic, but currently like my favorite thing is My Hero Academia. Like I think I've watched the entire series up to point twice now, and then
I can't do that. I can't ever watch something I've already watched. Like it has to be super special.
Oh,
for me.
I'm a person who lives by redoing.
Okay, yeah, I noticed that from what you were saying earlier. Like, so My Hero Academia is one I've seen like probably 1.5 times. Like I've gone back and watched certain parts of it, but for most things, I never watch it more than once.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny because I tell people, Michael talks about all the movies he's watched. I might have watched every episode of How I Met Your Mother 5 times.
I'm only at 2.
Like, I legitimately have watched every episode of that show like so many times. And a lot of it's kind of what Wes said, where it's like this thing on the background while like I'm playing Nintendo Switch, but it's this thing that I love. Blue Mountain State's the same way. So I'm kind of into.
The worst days are also the ones where the sitcoms are with us, and we watch way too many of them. And I know that with you, Spencer, and I share it very much myself.
Yeah. So I think that those are kind of like the things that I nerd out over. I'm really into fan theories, like not like in a weird way where like I agree with them, but I like listening to them. So like for example, one of my favorite fan theories is that Ted is lying in How I Met Your Mother.
He's like just spinning a yarn this whole time.
Well, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like all of his
Yeah.
friends are like very extreme versions of human beings, right? And so like the fan theory is like he's just lying to get his kids to tell him he can date Robin. So I like that kind of stuff. I love the Harry Potter fan theories and stuff like that. So I'm into that. Cool. Let's move on to our final segment, which is with all of that being said and all of the things that we just talked about that we love. What is the thing that you're most looking forward to in nerd culture in 2019? We'll start with you, Michael.
Well, there are definitely a bunch of like really good films that are coming out next year. Obviously, Avengers Endgame is like going to be pretty huge.
It's kind of a crazy year. I like kind of looked at the slate.
Yeah.
It's so much stuff.
Well, actually, yeah. Tomorrow, I have a YouTube channel as well, and we're doing like our most anticipated films for 2019, and we actually had to break it into 2 different episodes because we split it into like blockbusters and indies, and just talking about all the blockbusters. I managed to get it down to like 16 minutes, but originally it was like 35 minutes, and it was probably like 2.5 hours of footage of us like talking about the movies we were looking forward to, and the indie film one is going to be probably like another 6 or 7 minutes as well. So yeah, there's a ton of films coming out next year that are really cool, and even just going like I said, I really like genre films, and so not just for big blockbusters, but also like that mid to low budget film range is getting tons of really interesting stuff. For sci-fi, they have like Ad Astra, which is a Brad Pitt movie. It's similar to I mean, I don't want to say totally similar, but the Interstellar. It's basically like Brad Pitt's dad goes off into space and disappears, and so Interstellar. He goes off and disappears.
By Brad Pitt, and there's time shenanigans. I'd be into that.
That would be amazing. No, I think it's actually Tommy Lee Jones,
Okay.
if I remember correctly, is the dad, and he disappears at the edge of the solar system, and so 20 years later, Brad Pitt grows up and goes after him and discovers something crazy, I'm sure. So that
have you
sounds
seen
really
Interstellar,
interesting.
Mason?
No.
Have you seen what's the one that just came out with Hawkeye and Enchanted Girl? What Amy Adams? What is that one?
Hawkeye. Oh, you're talking about Arrival?
Oh yeah, they're the same movie, by the way, to me. not like from like concept, but like from pacing and story, like and feel as you like leave the theater. They were the same movie. We walked out and I was like, I don't know why, but I just feel like I left Interstellar, and everybody was like, oh, me too.
Yeah, with the pacing, I can see that because it's definitely something that it's slower. I really enjoy movies like that take their time and trust the audience to stay engaged. I mean, you can definitely have a boring movie. I'm not saying that the audience is supposed to keep engaged, but I just mean in the fact of like a filmmaker trusting that as long as they're telling an interesting story, that the audience will stay engaged and they don't have to throw big action or big CGI at the screen every 5 minutes.
Also, good storytelling is a slow build of tension.
Yeah, I mean, that's. I think that's something that's kind of, yes, that's true, but at the same time, I think storytelling can also be just a very quick release of that. You look at like Quentin Tarantino's films kind of jump back and forth of like they have that slow build of tension, but like a lot of them also just like kick off with a lot of that. And
I don't think it's totally linear. Like,
so far, we're like so far off from like what Michael's excited about. It's so funny. We're such nerds.
It's totally okay.
He's talking about film and storytelling. This is what he's excited about, I think.
No, and it's a good thing to talk about. Basically, like I just mean that it's good storytelling is just being able to really carry an audience through a narrative. It doesn't have to be slow and building. It can be big bombastic action. It can be whatever. The key is just like, what are you giving the audience? If, you know, and we talked kind of earlier about how everybody has their own thing that they're into. You know, you talked like Pokemon is different to everybody. Films are different to everybody and what they're looking for from it. And I think that going back to the Star Wars issue, it's more the fact that people are having a hard time finding that duality, I guess, or being open to two different options. You know, it's like
I think
two things can't be true at the same time kind of mentality.
I think people are having a hard time. So like, it was bad enough when like George Lucas went off and did the prequels because people were like felt like they were ruining their like childhoods. But I think that it's a little bit harder for people to like accept somebody else using Star Wars as their creative outlet.
Yeah.
Which is a little weird because I think most of them are pretty into like the novelization of Star Wars and other people doing that. But I think that when it's on a scale that size, they have a problem with it.
I think I think it's just it's people taking ownership of something that really they don't have ownership over. You know, you have ownership over your own memories of Star Wars and how you built that up, but then to turn around and say that someone else's version of that is wrong because it doesn't match yours, you know, it's the same thing. Like Doctor Who is something that I used to be super into, but I slowly kind of fell off just because all the Doctor Who friends that I had were like really into it. And if you didn't know all the episodes or all the, you know, it became kind of difficult to be a Doctor Who fan. And I feel that Star Wars didn't used to be that way. I mean, I think pretty much every film had a different director and they really had pretty different tones as well across the three original.
That's a huge problem that people don't realize is that, you know, is that while the creative, I could talk about Star Wars way too long. We shouldn't do this.
Yeah. No, you're okay. The point being that just the ability to see like take I think Bird Box is a better example because we won't go on any tangents with Star Wars.
I like Bird Box. I want to hear this. I like all this. Bird Box is one of the things like I jumped into and read a bunch about whatnot. So I'm interested to hear yours.
Yeah. So with Bird Box, a lot of people, I think, understandably had some pretty visceral reactions to it, and it surprised me because I was like, there's no way that I'm seeing as much like hate tweets as I did for Star Wars, like, and it really felt that way for a minute of just like, wow, some people are really angry about Bird Box. And so I even went into it thinking like, oh, this is probably pretty bad. I didn't watch it straight away. And I thought it was just okay. Like, some of it is really unbelievable. There are moments that are just like, this isn't feasible, and it really breaks that suspension it breaks the immersion. And
suspension of disbelief.
Suspension of disbelief. Thank you. Sorry, I'm exhausted. It's been a very long day. But yeah, it definitely breaks that immersion at times. But at the same time, that doesn't completely ruin the whole film. If there are a few moments that it breaks you out of, that's different than like, I couldn't get into it at all because of this thing. And some people may feel that way, but for me, it was like, there's plenty of good acting, plenty of good cinematography, and it was an interesting enough concept to like keep me watching. At no point was I like blown away, but I'm like, this is cool. So I was really surprised, like, just how angry people got. Like, I had some, especially in the film community, like there were a lot of people who just ranted about Bird Box, and I'm like, it's a Netflix survival movie, guys. Like, I talked about The Ritual earlier, and like, I really enjoyed that film, but similarly, like, it was one of those, like, you either were into it or you weren't, but it didn't get nearly the same amount of like reaction that Bird Box did. And I think that it's just that idea of like taking one thing that kind of pissed you off or didn't quite fit with your idea of what you wanted from a film or from a game or from anything, and then sending that to an extreme of like, therefore I need to be angry about this thing, and I need to let people know that I'm angry about this thing, instead of just like finding another outlet for that. A really good example being with like Sundance. Sundance is coming up right now, and so there are just thousands of filmmakers who want to get in, you know, and a lot of them aren't going to. And then just a couple of days ago, we saw this Facebook page get put up and get taken down pretty quick, but it was called Scam Dance or Scam Fest or something like that. And it was basically just a page for people to rant about like how these big festivals are rigged and you have to know somebody to get into them. And it's not that they are rigged because you have to know somebody to get in. It's that they are such huge festivals with so much prestige behind them that you have to have a lot that goes into
clout.
Yeah, you have to have word of mouth, you have to have a really solid film, and you do have to know people or know people who know people in order to get into them. But rather than sitting there and venting about it and just feeling sorry for yourself because you don't get into a specific festival, like take that large submission fee and just put it into like a bunch of smaller festivals and ones that are specific to your film. You know, if you have a horror film, you have a much smaller chance at Sundance than you do at a horror fest where a lot more people are going to see it, and they're going to be the audience that you actually want to watch your film and who are going to enjoy it.
I have a really hard time with that word. So if I ever don't say horror, I'm really sorry, Mason.
I get it.
And so something about the
Horror.
The way that people get negative in online communities, I think, it stems from a part where in all of communication, the better you feel about your current emotional state, the less you need to project it outwards.
Exactly.
If you're angry, you want everyone around you to know you're angry. And if you're like content, you're like, I don't want to talk to anybody. If you're excited, you want to share.
I don't think that's true. I mean, I think I want to talk to somebody all the time. I think that's why I have this podcasting thing going on.
Totally. But like, my point is like you like part of the things that we all need to improve at as communicators on the internet is censoring our communication such that we're really only sharing our negative emotions when they really do matter and or can be related with by other people. And not in ways that like move into other spaces. Like I think that we just need to try and be not more positive, but like share our emotions that are positive more frequently.
I think it's just being more thoughtful, like just taking the time instead of immediately, like especially, and this is a lot to do with like today's media as well, of just like it's a 24-hour news cycle, whether it's on YouTube or on
Twitter
or various news sites.
Has a 24-hour
hashtag always promoting. Hashtag always promoting.
Yeah, it's a 24-hour news cycle.
If you're not promoting, you're missing out on listeners.
I put my Twitter tag as my name on this for.
Yeah.
They can't see that.
But
never mind then.
Yeah, even as regardless of what platform it's on though, like because it's all about just getting it out there as soon as possible, it means that people are immediately reacting to their emotions instead of actually taking the time to think about it. You know, people as soon as they walked out of The Last Jedi immediately started tweeting about whether they hated it or loved it.
Yeah, I think that the polarizing opinions is something that I've been trying to get away from myself. Like I even this week on my Magic podcast, I did a podcast on cards that I specifically thought that none of us would have polarizing opinions on. Like
that's funny to hear after hearing the episode.
Did you feel like we had polarizing opinions?
Idea.
I felt. I'll talk after the show. Remind me.
Sure.
There was one in particular where I felt that way.
Okay. I know
Yeah,
what
yeah.
card that was.
Yeah.
But let's move on from this to. I'm gonna switch this around though because
Okay.
Mason, you've been kind of quiet for the last couple of minutes. So what are you most looking forward to in your culture in 2019?
Well, my notes I had, I'm not exactly sure. Good thing I have till the end, but the game's been changed on me, so I'm gonna change it up. If I had to pick one thing, it's probably would be. There are so many good animes coming out in the next year that I'm excited to watch. So like One Punch Man 2, Mob Psycho 2, My Hero Academia 2. There's a bunch of like one-off things that look very exciting. I'm excited for just like there are so many good shows coming up. Not even mentioning like the obvious stuff like Game of Thrones, Big Little Lies season 2. All
This
those
is a great
things.
age of television.
Yeah, we're in
It's
the golden
so
age.
weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird how good TV got. I like.
Yeah.
We can talk about that in another episode, but we should do an episode on that. Somebody put that in the Discord.
I'm doing
Yeah.
it now.
Yeah, well, I just think TV is, and like it's interesting because one of my best friends in life, Trey, he does short film production too. So it's funny, like him and Michael, like I hear a lot of similar things. Also interesting to hear differing things from them too, and like the way they view stuff. And so, it is my first day meeting Michael, obviously, so I don't have a whole lot there. But regardless, it's for them, like they care about movies so much. But for me, I find it harder to get invested into movies because I find the long form narrative of TV better for getting to know and build with characters. And as such, like movies, while I enjoy them and I watch a lot of them, I don't connect with them the same way I do TV shows.
It's so funny because I when you think about character depth, we will do an episode on this, but like character depth didn't exist this way in TV. Like HBO and Netflix changed the game.
Oh
Like,
yeah, they totally
They
leveled it.
legitimately, like, I love Yu Yu Hakusho. I love it. It is one of my favorite animes of all time. But I have now watched so much anime this last year, and there's not another anime that builds characters the way that My Hero Academia does. It's not a thing, and it's so weird to see TV change that way and it impacting certain things. I think like Avatar: The Last Airbender did a pretty good job.
Yes.
Is like character building, but it's weird to see that creeping into like different genres. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know a genre that hasn't improved in such a way that the old standard classics are both necessary to read so you can appreciate them, and by the time you start reading the newest stuff, totally outclassed.
Yeah.
Even Lord of the Rings, I feel that way sometimes.
So anime is the thing for you right now, Mason?
That'd be one of them. Yeah, there are a lot of things too. Like I'm excited for what Magic means in 2019. I'm very excited for what's like that. I mean, like that could be a whole podcast. I'm sure.
That's my section, so don't worry. You don't have to.
Yeah,
take it.
yeah. So like, I mean, there's so much there, but like, I'm excited for that. I'm excited for like not only that, but like also like I do a podcast every week, so I'm excited for like that and like besides this one too, right? Like there's one that it's just me and Trey, and it's interesting to see like what is that going to hold, what can happen there, and so
yeah, your PPTQ podcast got real interesting really fast.
Oh yeah, baby, we're just a Magic podcast now. On that hot episode too, easy money. All right, well that's all there is for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll go next. So, I think that I'm excited for Star Wars Episode 9 for... So, if I were to rank things, it would be number 1, Star Wars Episode 9. Number 2, the next season of My Hero Academia. And then, surprisingly, I really am not feeling the same excitement that I would have... I think they took too long to launch this Game of Thrones. Like...
Nah, you're just you've gone through withdrawal, right? Like, you're over the addiction until... you get that first hit again. Then you're gonna be like,
I hope so.
Oh gosh.
But like I watched.
Yeah, I think it's that you're not prepared.
It could be.
I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like as someone who kind of felt similarly, like watching the new trailer, even just that one scene where she goes, "Winterfell is yours," I'm like, oh, I'm ready. Like I've been needing.
I didn't
this.
even care. That's why I feel this way. I like
so
saw that
interesting.
scene and I was like, okay, like, I mean, I don't know, but those are my top 2 probably. I think I'm excited for Star Wars for a couple reasons. One, I'm really glad that they brought back the director. I think that was a good choice. I know that wasn't their first choice, but I think allowing him to wrap the series with him doing Episode 7 is gonna be good, and I think it will fix a lot of the issues that people had with Episode 8.
So J.J. Abrams is back on.
Yeah.
And JJ made just a strictly better New Hope. So like I can't be upset with Episode 7.
It's gonna be interesting on this podcast because I care so little about Star Wars, and I've seen them all, and I have like opinions and thoughts, but like I can definitely tell there's a lot of passion for that here. Same with Lord of the Rings, and with me, that's just like those are things that exist.
So that's what happens when you're 12, Mason. You just have different.
That's for me for like anime, where like I've never been super into anime, but
that's why I wanted to get this group together, right?
Yeah.
I like felt the different things that people were interested in, and I think that it, becoming. Well, we'll see how it works out, right? Like
Yeah.
You know, this is the pilot. It could be like Mason's like, dude, I'm really bored with this. Like, I really don't care about this thing that these nerds are talking about. I thought this was going to be a My Hero Academia podcast, and it's not.
Well, I'll watch My Hero Academia, and then we can talk about it with
Yeah,
you
you
leaving
should-
Michael out.
You should
There
get
you go.
Bandersnatch. That's what we need.
Well, we're gonna
Yeah.
do. We're gonna do.
Black
Bandersnatch
Mirror
video.
is something I love, and
That's where this podcast is really going to improve over time. Is that we are going to first enthusiasm is infectious.
Right.
I think
agree.
every single one of us has something that the other person has said that we're going to walk away and saying, "I'm going to try that."
I agree.
And that's where this is going to be really big.
Yeah, I also think that My Hero Academia, I'm pretty new to it compared to other people, just because of, you know, I think I was introduced to it in like February, Mason. Is that right?
No, I mean, like you were asking me about it at GP Vegas. I remember you saying
So
like,
June.
yeah. I mean, like, yeah, it's relatively short. Like, it's only been, cause you didn't even watch it until like a little bit after that. So you've only watched it known about 5 months.
Well,
'Cause
it's.
I remember telling you before, and it took you a while to like get the ball going. You know?
Oh, it's because I was watching Yu Yu Hakusho. I remember now.
Okay.
No, I
I
like.
need to watch more anime.
I legitimately have never fallen in love with anything faster. Like literally since Star Wars, when I was a small child watching A New Hope at my uncle's house, I have not like been like, this is the coolest thing that's ever existed. And I don't know. You would think eventually like the show would stop. Like, how many seasons can you be great on a TV show, right? Like, I think that you know, a lot of the TV shows that I love just fall downhill, especially like animes, right? Like, you look at Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. You look at Yu Yu Hakusho was short enough where it didn't really run into that. But like Digimon season 1 and you know was amazing. Season 2.
Have you watched Digimon Try?
I have not yet, but it's not. It's no
Okay.
English dub, so
What?
there's no English dub.
I can't talk to you about that. Moving right past.
No, but it is honestly shocking that My Hero is still so good. So those are the things that I like. I don't know, and I'm sure Mason's right. I'm sure that like Game of Thrones, I'm gonna sit down and watch the first episode, and I'm gonna be all hype.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you have a nerd podcast now, so you have to finish it at least by the time that the last episode airs.
Oh, we actually have to make a rule literally on this podcast right
No
now.
spoilers?
No, we we record on a Thursday. If
Okay.
you have not watched the episode by the time the podcast, like, we might as well just make a segment for it on the show. If you have not listened by the podcast, like, you
Okay, now
probably
I got a dirty secret.
By the way, the episodes are like hour and 40 minutes long. It got confirmed. Just so
yeah,
like, you know.
they're really long.
Okay, yeah.
I have a confession then. I have read more books of Game of Thrones than I've watched seasons of the television show.
All right. Well, the podcast was fun while it lasted. See you later.
You got an HBO subscription that I can take?
Yeah, I do.
That might help.
Wait, how far are you into Game of Thrones?
I'm like halfway through season 3,
What?
Hey,
but I read
think-
all the books.
I think if you watch one episode every other day between now and the launch, you would finish like just in like 2 weeks into the new season.
Oh baby, I can watch more than one episode a day, please, Mason.
He's
Well,
literally
I-
not in school right now.
I'm just trying to give him a reasonable goal. If I tell him you have to watch 4 episodes a
Alex,
day,
I'd like to work in the back room. I'd like to sort cards.
I am going to work in the back room, but I'm not doing that very many hours of the week.
oh man.
All right, Wes, what is your excite for hashtag 2019?
I think that Magic in a number of ways have been building up to 2019. And oddly, the part I'm most excited about is the story.
Wow, that is odd.
Yeah,
Are
I
you
know,
excited for
totally.
us? Oh man, I'm not allowed. I can't talk. I'm not allowed to talk, so I continue. I don't want to talk over you.
But within the story of Magic, Nicol Bolas has been being set up as an incredible BA bad guy that's going to be hard to take down, and he's about to invade the only place that matters.
Is Ravnica the only place that matters?
It's like the only sets. It's the only block we've place we've ever been
is
in.
there a
that hasn't
third
been
Ravnica
destroyed.
set?
Yeah,
Are you? Wait, hang on.
it's
Are you
unnamed,
joking?
and it's Nicol Bolas's invasion of Ravnica.
Hold
Oh,
up, hang on.
hold on, time out. So today I saw the name of the new set, and I
Yeah. I
saw
don't
that
even
it
know
had the
what
Ravnica background,
War of Spark.
and I was like,
War Spark?
the War of the Spark or something like
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds exactly like what it ought to be named.
Yeah, and I was like, Why is this a Ravnica background? I thought it was a 2-set block.
Papa. All right, I'm gonna ask Wes a question. I'm gonna invade. Do you think we're going to lose Planeswalker Sparks in the War of Ravnica? Yes or no?
I think people are gonna die.
I'm saying, do you think we're going to lose the Planeswalkers as a story element? Like they're going to do something where you can no longer Planeswalk, and for like a while, and they'll come back to it.
They might low power planeswalking for a while. I think that's a reasonable place to be.
Okay, I think they're going to kill Planeswalkers. That's my hot take.
No. Planeswalkers are too good of a card type. They're too important.
Let's make a bet right now on stream. What do you want to bet?
Oh wait, hold on. Wait, loser.
Oh, I got you.
Loser has to watch a TV show.
Complimentary limerick.
What?
What's that? Is that like I write nice things about you?
Well, a compliment, yeah, is means you're writing nice things. You know what a limerick is?
It's like a poem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I figured it out, but
Iambic pentameter, AABBA.
No,
it's so easy. It's so easy for you if you win, right? Like if you get to talk nice things about me.
I have no idea how to write an iambic pentameter.
All right. How about this? We have to come on the podcast.
Instead.
Yes.
Why are you writing things about each other in your bed?
Perfect.
Because
the world needs more positivity. The world needs more positivity.
He's saying that this needs to be high level, and I'm raising him poetry.
I didn't even know it. I was a poet. Right there, easy. That one's for free. So, all right, deal. So it's gonna. We won't know till May, probably, right? So actually, we'll know any spoilers. Yeah, but it's a watch. It's a thing.
It's a freaking past a hair
so
right now.
I'll check. I'm gonna set a reminder on my phone right now, but we'll see.
If Planeswalkers are not going to be a card type anymore, we will not know till June.
We'll know in April because we will know enough.
They'll all be dead.
Yeah, well,
they're not all there. That's like saying that every Planeswalker on the planet. That's such a stupid bet. You're so wrong.
No, I'm so right. I think what's going to happen is because the Planeswalkers walk through the blind eternity, and if you think about it from Doctor Who, it's like the time, like he moves through a time stream. If you're a Doctor Who fan, you don't know what's going on. I think they're going to get rid of the time stream. Like I think they're going to get rid of the blind eternity. I think Bolas is going to do something, and it's going to cause a big explosion, and then the story arc for a couple of years is going to be getting it back. Like we had all this power, and now we don't.
Alternatively,
the characters are too good.
How about the only plane on which there's probably a trillion people?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't know, a huge number of people on Ravnica compared to any plane. I think that Nicol Bolas conquering that is an important enough story element.
That's true. And when they get rid of Planeswalkers at the same time, it's gonna be crazy.
On Ravnica, it's an easy brainer, easy no brainer.
All right. With that being said, that's the things we're excited about. That's the things we're going to talk about this year. Tons of podcast ideas came out of this pilot. I, for one, enjoyed myself. I had a lot of fun.
I can't wait to get my sonnet. It's gonna be great.
Yeah,
I'm ready to think of things I can give Wes for free.
Let's wrap this up with the nerd fact. Does anybody have a nerd fact they want to throw out? I already did one. I'm
trying to think of a good one.
Super Sentai and Power Rangers are not a 1-for-1.
Fact: the Dragon Ball Super trading card game might be the best trading card I've ever seen at making mechanics storytelling.
Interesting. I don't know. I think that was an opinion. I don't think you know what a fact. I don't think you know what the fact is.
That's why I did it.
I didn't want to say anything. Trying to think of one. Well,
that's all, folks. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you guys all next week with another episode of Need to Nerd.